I'm Alison Tierney. I am a board certified oncology dietitian, and I'm also a cancer thriver myself. And my role as an oncology dietitian truly is, in my opinion, to help empower cancer patients to take back control and control the controllables and help reduce their risk of recurrence, and trying to really focus on food as being this really powerful rather than this fearful thing when it comes to cancer. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about nutrition and incorporating it into a cancer treatment protocol and into survivorship is because we do know the research that it does play a role. Now, cancer is multifactorial, right? One particular food is not going to cause cancer or prevent cancer in itself, or, it might not be necessarily, this one food that you ate or this one habit that you had caused cancer. It's so multifactorial. And for many of us, we will never know exactly what caused our cancer, right? And I think what is so difficult for us as cancer survivors is that the minute you're given that diagnosis, you feel completely out of control, right? And it's true, there are many things in cancer itself that we cannot control. I have a genetic mutation. I can't control my genes, right? I can control the environment around me only so much, right? But there's environmental contaminants and so forth. And so my approach to this is really control the controllables and try to let the rest go. And the reason why I say that is try to let the rest go is because I can totally relate that you want to be in full control and we're not in full control, right? And where I see nutrition being so beneficial is, of course, I'm a dietitian, I'm a nutrition nerd. I love phytochemicals and vitamins and minerals and gut health and all these things about why it's so good for us, right? I could talk your ear off about the benefits of nutrition against cancer. But I think when it really comes down to it, is that nutrition can be empowerment. And when we are empowered and we feel strong, that just changes the entire landscape, right? So when you talk about what are the first things that come to mind when it comes to nutrition, honestly, it's not even always like the questions about sugar feeding cancer and soy, which we can absolutely talk about and address. But it really comes down to how do we live high quality of life, empowered and not living in fear, right? We already have enough fear of recurrence and all of these other things. I don't want food and nutrition to be something that people fear, but rather become empowered and can enjoy sitting down and having a meal with their family. And I think what can be difficult about it is that nutrition is not emphasized as part of the regular treatment protocol or the standard of care in a lot of cancer centers. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Some of it just has to do with like limited ability to access cancer dietitians, right? Or just limited ability in time and resources, et cetera. So from that perspective, the other thing is that research really does show that working with a dietitian during cancer treatment can help reduce side effects, reduce hospitalizations, reduce infections, improve quality of life, and reduce any delays in treatment, which is really important. We don't want to have like dose reductions if we can help it, or delays in treatment because we want to have it be the most effective. And that proper nutrition and adequate nutrition can improve the results of chemotherapy, right? So these are all incredible benefits that are unfortunately so often missed when it comes to the regular treatment protocol. So I always like people to know that, like, even if your oncologist isn't talking about it, talk about it, right? And if they don't know the answers, make sure that they're giving you a referral to an oncology dietitian. And with that being said, dietitians during the course of treatment really can help to manage side effects related to treatment. Of course, we're there to help, create a good foundation of nutrition. But during the course of treatment, that is the priority, which is managing side effects, making sure we're adequately nourished, and maintaining weight. Because when we can do those things, we have better outcomes. I always tell people some of the conversations that I have during treatment are very different than the conversations that I'll have outside of treatment. And what I mean by that, for example, is let's say someone has diarrhea related to treatment. As much as I love broccoli as this incredible cancer fighting food, it is not something that someone should be eating if they're having diarrhea, right? I would love for someone to incorporate it all the time, every day in survivorship. But some of those changes are going to happen during the course of treatment. And that's where like individualized attention to your specific needs really matter. And the other thing I'd like to clarify too is I remember when I was working at the traditional cancer center, we had bays, right? And I was talking to one individual in a bay, and then another patient had kind of overheard our conversation, and she stopped me and she's like, "Wait, you're the dietitian?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, I got a referral to you, but I didn't really want to be told that I just needed to eat more fruits and vegetables." And I was like, "Oh, goodness." Like, that's not, I mean, yes, fruits and vegetables are important. Don't get me wrong. And I'm going to recommend them. However, that's not necessarily our role during the course of treatment. Our role during the course of treatment is to help manage side effects and make sure that you feel as best as possible, right? So for me, I had a little bit of nausea during my own treatment. How can I mitigate that nausea? I used ginger and peppermint and physical activity to help manage that nausea, to help make sure that it wasn't so intense that it limited my quality of life, my activities of daily living, or just purely getting nutrition in. Now, when it comes to some symptom management, most common symptom that we experience is, other than fatigue, is going to be nausea. And we really want to try to reduce that nausea so that we can incorporate more foods. Some of my favorite recommendations for nausea are things like incorporating ginger into the diet. And that can be through ginger tea. It could be through adding ginger or grating it into your food. For example, I do not like ginger that much. I'll add it to my food a little bit. Now, I ended up, before treatment, I ended up making my own like ginger capsules. And what I did with it, it's just a vegetarian capsule, and I added ground ginger to it. So when I was having the most nausea, I would take one or two ginger caps, and I knew what was in the cap, right? I didn't buy a supplement. I bought ginger, right? So that could be something. So I'm always working with ways with patients that if they don't like some of these things, how do we incorporate some of it into our diet? And I think one thing that I want to address when it comes to nausea that's often overlooked is constipation, right? Some of the medications that we can take, from the pre-meds or even like the Zofran, et cetera, that might be anti-nausea medications, can cause constipation. And constipation can exacerbate nausea or make it worse. So really, as a dietitian, you're often looking at some of these other things that some other people might not be thinking about that could be playing a role into the side effect. So there's a couple different ways that we would manage something. And then of course, taking that individual perspective of like, this person likes this, but she doesn't like that. Or if chemo, some of your favorite foods are not going to taste good, right? Peanut butter is one of my hands down favorite foods, did not taste good during treatment. Right. So, how do we help them make sure that they're enjoying foods as best as possible when chemo causes so many of those side effects? Appetite loss is a big issue, right? And because the other part of it is it becomes a really vicious cycle, right? Chemo causes less appetite. Less appetite means you eat less. Eating less means you don't have the calories, the energy that you need, and it just keeps on continuing. So the first and foremost is we need to try to break that cycle, even with something little. So sometimes we really want to be emphasizing high calorie foods, which can be something that's so difficult for some people because many people might have been focusing on eating less calories before they had cancer, right? So from that perspective, we want to try to optimize where can we get more calories with a smaller volume, for that example, right? Sometimes it could be liquid nutrition drinks, right? I prefer some that have better ingredients over others, or making smoothies, for example. And how do we optimize that smoothie to have as much calories as possible? And so it's really working with that person. And a lot of times I'll give examples and I'll say, how does that sound to you? And they might say, okay, I think I can try that. Or they might say, that does not sound good. Okay, let's get some other ideas here, right? So it's really working with that individual, because what sounds good to this person going through chemo might not sound good to the other person going through chemo. Really, I guess the long story for short is we're trying to optimize calories in small volumes when we don't have an appetite, to try to bring that appetite back, because it sounds counterintuitive, but eating actually helps enhance the appetite. So we're going to work on different strategies like that. I think one of the hard things is that there are a lot of nutrition drink products out there, and it's kind of hard to discern what ingredients are good and what ingredients aren't good. Number one, I do think trying to emphasize, if you can know what that ingredient is and it's familiar to you, it's probably a plus. Now, some of them are familiar and not that great, right? we want to try to get a nutrition drink or nutrition supplement that is going to be more of a meal itself, if we can, right? If that's all we're getting. So the reason I say that is because there's a lot of products out there that are just protein and almost no carbohydrates. We need both. And we need a little bit of fat too, right? So there's so many products out there that are like 50 grams of protein, and then there's almost no carbohydrates in it. Avoid, because yes, we need protein, but we also need carbohydrates. Okay. So I think that's really important to look for, is making sure that it does have some carbohydrates. If people are looking for specific brands, some of my favorite brands to recommend for those products is Orgain. I think they do a good job of making it taste flavorful, but also using higher quality ingredients. And the first ingredient's not like high fructose corn syrup or corn syrup. Or also, Kate Farms has a pretty good one too, and they taste pretty good. I think the important part is like it has to taste good, right? But making your own smoothies at home can be a really great idea, and you could use a protein powder if you wanted, and then add fruit and so forth. The biggest thing I want to get across about nutrition supplements and drinks like that is it needs to have calories, protein, and carbohydrates, right? We can't just focus on protein. We need all of it, and a little fat, of course. When it comes to plant-based, vegan, keto, like what do I do? Okay. So I'm a big believer in evidence-based nutrition, meaning what does the scientific literature say to us, right? And no, research is not 100% conclusive. Nutrition research is actually very difficult to do because there's so many variables into somebody's life, right? However, the American Institute for Cancer Research and the World Cancer Research Fund puts together a report every 10 years where they have a panel of experts around the world on nutrition, cancer, and physical activity create recommendations and guidelines. So if anybody was interested in reading the report, it's actually, I'm pretty sure it's like 1,000 pages long or something like that. But they have a summary on their website, and you would look for the third expert report. So that's the most updated report, is the third expert report that came out, I believe, in 2018. And so they have these 10 guidelines, and these guidelines are only created when there's strong evidence to support it. And so, that's the thing, is that there are some things in nutrition research where, like, some research shows that this is bad for us and increases cancer risk. Some research shows that it actually might be beneficial. So it's like, what do we do, right? And I think there are so many different nuances that we can get into those particulars with an individual. But overall, the recommendation is to eat a plant predominant diet. And the reason why I say it like that is because some people hear plant-based. I think plant-based is a great word, but we all interpret it differently. Plant-based can also mean plant forward or plant predominant, meaning that we're trying to focus on getting as much whole, unprocessed plant-based foods into our diet. These are fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and some nuts and seeds. And then there might be small amounts of animal products, whether it be from poultry or eggs or fish. We do want to try to avoid processed meats as much as possible, and limit our red meats as well. And now, with this to be said, a lot of people will say, like, do I need to be completely vegan? Well, I think that is up to the individual. Research shows that plant predominance is the most important factor in what your diet looks like as a whole. Okay, if we're really predominantly getting those whole unprocessed plant foods. Now, if somebody wants to be 100% plant-based, you can absolutely achieve a healthy, nutritionally adequate diet choosing to be 100% plant-based, with the exception that we do need to add a B12 supplement if somebody is choosing to be 100% plant-based. And there's reasons for that. I used to think, well, if we have to include a supplement, how is this considered the best diet, right? And unfortunately, it's how we have agricultured our lands, and our sanitation processes has unfortunately destroyed the B12 in the soil. So really, for that to be said, you do not need to be vegan or vegetarian, but I would highly encourage people to eat more whole plant-based foods. And when it comes to things that we want to limit or avoid, definitely processed meats. Processed meats, unfortunately, are considered a group 1 carcinogen. A group 1 carcinogen, by definition, is known to cause cancer in humans. Processed meats are hot dogs, bacon, lunch meats. It doesn't matter if you get it from the deli counter or you get it from the package or it's nitrate free or not nitrate free. It's a processed meat. And unfortunately, these are highly related to colorectal cancer. Also on that group 1 carcinogen list, unfortunately, is alcohol. Okay, that's hard for a lot of people to hear because it's such a social thing and it can be great. However, alcohol itself is a known carcinogen. It is a group 1 carcinogen. So I usually encourage people, if you don't drink, don't start. There's no reason to, the resveratrol benefits from red wine, you can get those benefits from other places rather than having to include alcohol. And I think when it comes to working with my individual clients, I try to really dive in to say, like, what do you like about drinking alcohol? Is it because you just truly enjoy it? Or do you feel like in a social setting you need to drink? Or, so sometimes it's not just like saying don't drink, it's digging deeper into understanding why somebody wants to drink or is interested in it, or do they just like it? And if they just like it, how do we incorporate that into a healthy overall lifestyle? So those are the 2 foods that unfortunately make the group 1A carcinogen list. And those 2 foods are relatively frequently talked about as cancer causing foods. But I think what's missed is that a lot of people don't talk about what's on the group 2A list, which is likely to cause cancer in humans. And that's where the red meat falls. So red meat, the AICR and the World Cancer Research Fund recommends having less than 18 ounces of red meat in the diet overall over the course of a week. Red meat is anything that's beef, pork, veal, or lamb. And yes, pork does fall into the red meat category. And so I usually tell people definitely the less, the better of red meat. But really, if we can, my simple motto and strategy is eat more plants, right? If you can add more plants, that is going to give you some really great benefits. So in summary, when we look at the research and we look specifically at the research for cancer prevention and the prevention of cancer recurrence, a plant-based or a plant-forward diet is considered to be the most sound evidence-based recommendation to reduce the risk of cancer. But certainly individuals can go to thepatientstory.com, learn more about my story and so forth. They can also reach out to me at my socials, which is on Instagram, it's at wholesome.cancer.nutrition. Feel free to DM me there, ask some questions. Of course, I do need to be mindful of say that, I can point you into directions, but I can't give individual recommendations and medical advice on my Instagram and so forth, but be happy to point people into the direction of resources. But yeah, I love talking about nutrition. I love empowering people with nutrition to help reduce the risk of cancer and its recurrence. And I'm happy to help share and spread the word for that too.